The Totally True Adventures of Captain Nipplefudge and the Fantastic Airship Naughtypants. Written by Richard Hendry, copyright 2020. Narrated by Richard Hendry. Chapter 1. By the Light of Hubris. It was the third age of man, known as the Age of Belief, where fantastic airships, huge fireflies, and babies filled the sky as far as one cared to gaze. Babies, as you know, do not believe in gravity, and therefore it holds no power over them. The captain stood at the bow of the Naughtypants, his deep blue eyes searching the sky for a sign of light. It was the darkest night the captain had ever seen. Not a speck of light from the dark world above. Hubris, the brightest star in the captain's sky, had gone dim, and now he might well swear that the world may have just disappeared below him, for no light rose up from the water or the land. The Naughtypants might be in space, he thought, and then chuckled to himself. He did not believe in space, so that was not possible. No, the blackness above was just that, blackness. No heavens, no other worlds, just blackness, and of course, wenches. An endless sea of naked, willing wenches. Yes, that was what the captain believed, and sure as hell, that was what was up there. He was certain that when he was through with this world, he would rise up there into the blackness and swim in that wench-filled sea forever. Yet this was oddly black today, and lacking wenches. When at once the captain smiled. In the confusion of the day, Captain Nipplefudge had forgotten to turn on his star. "O Hubris, illuminate my way," he commanded to the emptiness, and the star shone so bright it was as if night was day. And his crew came to life. "Arr, the captain has lit the way," Mr. Twin, the two-headed first mate, proclaimed. "Now make ready for wind." The crew started to work at once. Nipplefudge felt the wind coming, slow at first, but then picking up speed. It rushed over his weathered face and beard, stinging his eyes and pushing his hat back on his head. Nipplefudge smiled. "Move the thing and put the other thing down," he yelled at the crew. "Tie off the ties and knot the things that knot. Move the ship in that-a-way." The crew moved quicker than before, as if they understood the captain, but sadly no one did. Captain Nipplefudge was a great man and a furious friend to all airshipmen under him, but he did not know the first thing about flying. In fact, it seemed that the captain knew so little, it was as if he knew nothing at all. In quiet moments in the hull of the great Naughtypants, the crew would often wonder how the captain became a captain at all, and if it was not for Mr. Twin, they would all surely be lost. Now the sky was bright and filled with babies floating on the gentle breeze, just as it should be. He watched the crew as they made sail and set the ship north to the coast and then out to sea. Nipplefudge knew what the crew thought of him, and he did not mind. In 600 years he had been a captain of the airship. He had seen things that they could not possibly imagine. Long now he had forgotten the names of everything on the ship. In 600 years, you have to choose what you're going to remember, or your mind will simply pop. He had fought the hordes from the Northlands. He had set fire to the winged, flaming red Burgeton-wedger, a huge flying slug that threatened the safety of babies during the last age of man, known as the Be Really Scared of the Burgeton-wedger age. "I've seen the dreaded fat goonberry," he said to no one under his breath, "and ate it." Nipplefudge shifted from his good leg to his bad one and then back again. "If only these poor bastards knew what mission they were on, they'd jump off the ship and take their chances bouncing from baby to baby," he thought. And he was right. For this night the captain had been given an order most foul, an assignment that the known world hung on, and if they failed, if he failed, life as they believed it would end. And they were heading to a place long forgotten by most, but one that the captain had been before to, and in that place lay a power so strong that he could not even believe it away. that his crew and all of those who he knew could not believe it away. This power existed, even in the absence of belief, and it was the only thing in this world that scared him. A baby floated by the captain's head, missing it only by inches, giggling and smiling at him. The captain smiled back and pushed the infant along with one finger. "Enjoy this night, young one," he said, as the smile quickly faded from his face. "Your days of floating carefree might be over soon and come crashing down, baby and all." Chapter 2. A Dark Beginning. 24 hours ago. Vex did not know how he got where he was, and in fact, Vex was not sure he had been anywhere before he was where he was now. Vex only knew he was in some crazy argument with a shop owner named Reginald Smitherton, and although Vex could not even recall how the argument started, Vex was sure of one thing: he was right. He did not believe he was right. He knew it, and that was making Mr. Smitherton even madder. "This is the age of belief, dear man," Smitherton asserted. "We do not know things. We believe them, sir." Vex was undaunted by this. "Well, I know what I know, and I know I'm right," Vex replied with equal force. Smitherton's anger rose to a volcano of madness at this insane man and his absurd assertions. "Look, whatever your name is, one does not need to know something. One only has to believe in something. You, sir, speak as a fool does." Smitherton smiled, certain that this fool was put in his place. Vex stood still for a moment, and in the quiet of that moment that followed, an idea came to him, and a moment later he gave that idea to Mr. Smitherton. "Simply believing a thing does not make it so," Vex said, not sure where the idea came from, or even if it made any sense. Smitherton reeled in disbelief for a second, and then froze, his mind twisting in his head, shards of his reality breaking off in every direction, pulling apart the very fabric of his existence, as if they were flying outward. In his stupor, Smitherton started to babble to himself. "If I cannot believe my beliefs, then I must believe that I cannot believe a thing. What, then, can I believe, if I'm to disbelieve my own beliefs?" Vex was moving back away from Smitherton. He was scared. What had he done? What did he say? Vex did not even understand the words coming out of Smitherton's mouth. To him it was babble, but to Smitherton it was unrolling the world he knew, taking thin layer after layer off the foundation of his thought processes and burning them like parchment in a blaze. Vex felt the ground beneath the anti-negativity non-detector shop start to shake. The shop that Smitherton had believed that people would shop at, which was in fact a shop filled with devices that did not detect if people were positive. It was coming apart right before his eyes. The walls of the shop were fading. The shelves filled with the once needed products were turning to vapor and simply disappearing. A moment later, Smitherton and Vex stood on a vacant lot in the city. People moved past them as if nothing had been there a second ago. Smitherton was on his knees now, weeping and mumbling. Vex was horrified. What had he done? What had he said, and where in the world had that thought even come from? He started to run at first, into the street, and then down the road until he was in the middle of a bright red and gold field, filled with wanderberry bushes and huge singing toads. The singing toads loved the wanderberry bush, and while they did not partake of the bittersweet berries from the bush, the leaves of the bush gave them a clear and steady voice which to sing their songs, songs of love, peace, and of course, the joys of eating flies. Vex stopped and fell to the ground as the toads harmonized. The gentle breeze shifted the gold leaves of the wanderberry bush, and the bright red berries swayed back and forth in front of Vex. Vex wanted to stay there forever, not move from this place, never talk to a single soul again. A very large toad hopped past him, singing loudly as it hopped. Vex looked at him strangely, and a thought entered his mind. Why is it that toads can sing so clearly and perfectly, yet they cannot talk? And a moment later, to Vex's horror, there was silence in this perfect field. To Vex's left, just beyond the field, a small farmhouse sat, and from inside he could hear crying. And then people rushing out of the house in panic, their voices filled with questions as they were screaming them into the air. Why have the toads stopped singing? What manner of evil befalls us? What is happening? Vex rolled on the ground and into the thick bush, praying that they would not find him. Vex thought to himself, what manner of evil had befallen them? What manner indeed? Chapter 3. The Five Tribes. Monk was the leader of the 5 tribes. He had been sent to the mainland to consult with the federal council on a matter of high importance. He was carrying a message for the council that defied understanding. The 5 tribes were the oldest people known in this time and have a legend that they were the last people of the Old World, known as the Second Age of Man, a time filled with confusion and horrors, until the Age of Belief came and freed the people of the world. The 5 tribes were the last people to accept the age, for they knew that someday the makers of the Second Age, those they called the Travelers, would return, and with them would come the end of belief. They would replace the eye at the world's end. This was that time. The Travelers had returned. At first, Monk could not believe that it was true, that they had indeed returned, but the evidence was too strong. No belief could change it. The color in the sky was fading. The fields of river weeds and liquid trees had all but dried up, and in just a few days, not 1 but 3 babies were found crying on the ground, which, as everyone knows, was impossible. He now sat at the midsection of his turbuck as it flew him over the ocean, its 3 sets of wings pushing them through the air across the sea, the beast's nose covered, as always, with a soft pad to avoid hurting babies. Today, as Monk's eyes searched the sky, there was not a baby to be found. He leaned forward and placed his hand on the tubok's head. It purred as he gently patted its head, running its fingers through its purple fur. He wondered if the tubok knew that something was wrong. Below them a sea slipped by, and ahead was the great city of Condor. He could just make out the 5,000-foot-tall spires of the city's towers that crested just above the height of the mountain range that lay beyond the city. Over 100 million people and creatures lived there in harmony. Monk was an island dweller, and while he could not even imagine living that way, he was always happy to visit and enjoy the fantastic creations that millions of people had made from belief. He hoped that he would have time to climb the towers and jump into the vertical pools, but his time was short. The council would have many questions, and he would have to return soon and try and calm his people. Monk could see the shore now, and soon he would be soaring upward to the council floor, the city's center building. The building was the tallest in Condor, and rightfully so, for as the city center, everyone agreed it should be the tallest. At first, as Monk gazed at the buildings, there appeared to be snow falling around them, but as Monk looked closer, he was shocked to see that parts of the buildings were falling off it at a very steady rate, as if the building was shaking off parts in every direction. Below on the streets, people stopped and looked upwards, and in less than 3 minutes, enough people believed the building was falling, and a second later, the building was raining down on them. The horror spread through the city like a wave, picking up each life and changing it. In the smaller buildings, people wondered if that one could fall, perhaps this one could too. The effect was systemic. Doubt bred disbelief, and that led to the belief that they were not safe. And so it was. As each unbelievable thing happened, it served to reinforce the belief that more would happen. As more bad things happened, less people believed that it would stop. Monk pulled the reins of his Tubok hard and turned away from the city. It was too late. Condor had fallen. He would go back to the island and contact the royal airshipmen. Only they could help the world now, and in fact, only one man. The man that had been to the Eye, as the tribe called it. The center of power that lay between the two rivers of life. It was there where all men feared, for nothing is real. It is the barrier place where all understanding is lost, and you must bring forth from the Eye what you seek without knowing what it is. You must believe without knowing you can, and you must create without having knowledge of creation. Only the captain had been there and came back, his mind twisted and bent, and he alone had saved the age. But to all things there is a price. Monk pushed the price from his mind. He would not give that thought a life of its own, by lending any belief to it, and, as members of the 5 tribes were trained to do, be able to resist that line of thinking. Behind him lay the city of people, dead beneath their fallen belief, because it had been deemed dangerous to inform the people that their reality was so fragile that it could be undone by a single thought, a single doubt. He had little time to consider the human cost of that decision as the Tubok's wings started to fall from its body. He would have to put all of his thoughts towards getting home, lest he wanted to try and float home, believing that he was a baby. Chapter 4. The Wayside. Vex climbed to the last part of the hill and looked down onto the city of rubble that lay next to a blue sea. He could hear screams rising upward from the mix of concrete, steel, and bodies that seemed to be just in one big pile. Vex wept as he sat on the ridge. Behind him the small town was in ruins, and below him the great city of Condor was swept away by some unseen evil. For him, he had no idea what to do. He did not believe that belief was enough now, and he was filled with fear because he knew nothing of what was happening, or what would happen, or even how to fix it. He was lost, alone, and he felt the solitude and emptiness of having no control of his life. He did not know if he would die if he jumped from the ridge, yet he did not feel he had strong enough belief that he would not. The only thing he knew now was that this was the consequences of the single thought he had had back at Smitherton's shop, and the knowledge of that made him sick. It was a flood of odd and strange feelings about what was happening. He saw the families huddling together for safety as their world they had believed in was quite literally melting, like a snowman in the sun. He felt an overwhelming need to remember his life, yet he could not. He could not recall any family or friends or even acquaintances. He was also having the time of it trying to remember where he came from. It was like everything about his life was gone. The only thing he could recall was the word travelers. Yet he knew his name, and he knew one other thing, that he could no longer believe in anything. He had to know. Only that would do for him now. In fact, over the horror that he was watching all around him and the way he knew that he should feel about it, Vex was feeling some odd sense of satisfaction, as if he alone had known something that everyone else did not. And now that he had stood his ground and stated his case, he had effected such an amazing change in the world, the total effect of which he was still unaware of. He knew that he should feel for everyone. Surely this was a shocking and awe-inspiring event, one that was making everyone else in the world uncomfortable. He should have been feeling sad and sorry for them. His lack of empathy for them was causing him to shake and weep uncontrollably, while in his mind, one question was rolling over and over. Where did this idea come from? And in the hard and inescapable dichotomy of this insane notion, the thing that made Vex's mind crack in two, as he thought of it, struggling with it, wrestling it like a 12-armed creature that he could not get a hold of, it was impossible to subdue and contain in his head. He could only ask the question, never even thinking it was possible to pin down a suitable answer, because somewhere, at some time, he had to first believe that belief was not enough. Again he heard the voice in his head say, "The travelers." Above him, the sky was turning dark, even though it was only mid-afternoon. Vex stood there on the ridge, unable to understand any of this, his mind and body spent. And then a picture formed in his mind's eye, fuzzy and out of focus. The picture was of him as a small child, standing here on the ridge, looking out at this very same view, and the very same events as he saw now. And then it was gone. The vision was fading. Vex struggled to remember a small picture of himself. His hands were balled into fists, and he was hitting the top of the ridgeline fence in anger, the pain shooting through his hands and up his arms, desperate to understand what was happening, wanting so badly to. He looked down at his hands, and as he did, they started to vanish before his eyes. His arms were gone too. He started to weep in vain. He was leaving now. He would not be here in just a few seconds. And then it was clear to him why. No one believed anymore. No one was left anywhere to believe in him. He did not remember them anyhow, even if his belief would have been strong enough in them to make it so. We all need someone to believe in us, for us to believe in. Vex was suddenly struck with another thought, that perhaps existence itself existed because of our belief in it. The travelers had made him do this. Had he undone everything? And if he had, this would be a fitting punishment, to know it just before he was erased from existence. And so, Vex no longer would exist. And no one would ever remember who had brought this upheaval into the world. Which was the last and small mercy of thought Vex was allowed to have, before he became nothing. Chapter 5. To World's End. As the captain's great airship floated across the vast sea, he noticed a trail of floating wings and feathers just off in the distance. "Mr. Twin," he bellowed, "make haste towards that bother over there." He pointed. "Aye, aye," Mr. Twin's two mouths said in unison, and the ship heeled starboard in the direction of the falling trail. Once there, Nipplefudge spotted a man in the sea. "Drop a line to that man," he commanded, and in a few minutes, Monk and the captain were in his quarters. "The city has fallen." Monk spoke the words he could not believe. The captain's eye grew wide. "Then it has begun," he replied. "Yes," Monk said. "All is lost, Captain." The captain thought for a moment. "No," he said flatly. "I go now to World's End to save us," he said in his best and most confident tone. Monk was not inclined to believe it was possible, and Nipplefudge could see that. "You must have faith, sir, lest you weaken our hope further," the captain exclaimed. "The city is gone. Babies lay crying on the cold, hard ground. People lay beneath buildings and rubble and stone. My beloved Tubok is lost to me in the depths of this endless sea. Sir, I cannot see my faith aiding in any of this madness. A madness that we have been party to," Monk said, causing the captain to lose his temper. "Damn you, sir, you will try, and never speak of our complicity in this. We had no choice, and you know it. If we had told them it was fragile, it would have never worked. For the gift of belief to work, they had to think of it as permanent. To suggest otherwise was to court failure from the start." Monk knew he was right, but it was hard for him to stop feeling that he could have done more. "Can I drop you anywhere?" the captain asked Monk. "May I come with you?" he asked. "No, I'm afraid not, dear sir. Where I go, only I have ever returned from." "Where is it?" Monk asked. The captain looked towards the horizon. Just over there, he pointed at the endless sea. What of your crew, then? How will they survive? I put them ashore at Last Bay Island, 2 days out from World's End. From there, the ship is pulled towards the center, so no crew be needed. Monk still wanted to plead his case to travel with him. I am of the 5 tribes. I am trained. My mind is strong. I have kept the secrets of belief and helped nurture this world, and perhaps in your advancing years, I might even be able to help you in your negotiations, he offered the captain. Be that as it may, the place I go, there's nothing. It is not there. And in that place, where something should be, there is still more nothing. It breaks the mind, the hardest of us. I found it in my search to change our world. It came to me in a vision as I wandered for years. Then it called to me and I found it. I lost my crew and my first ship, the Nasty Britches. And I stood there in the center of it, the all-encompassing void, forcing my will upon it, arguing with eternity's voice, fighting with existence's guard, until I thought me mad. And at the last, belief was born. And even in that victory, I always knew this day would come. Sir, I have spent the last 300 years mounting my argument for this day. I'm sorry. Well-meaning you are, but there's no help you can offer. Best you find safe harbor and enjoy the days and minutes left in the case that I do not prevail. Monk understood, and the captain was right. Whatever he thought he could do, it was moot. I'll go ashore at Last Bay with your crew then. I have no intention of slowing your progress. And I have no home left now. Monk finished. He and the captain sat there in silence for a long time, neither of them having or needing to say anything more. Their course was set. The bell was rung, and it would be answered. Chapter 6. An Apt Argument. If all knowledge can be known, then I understand, the captain offered. But if there is to be ignorance unending, then would not belief be better for all? Since they could just believe a thing and it be so, they would not have to suffer from unknowing and the evils that might be perpetrated on them by those that claim to know more. Surely you can see the dilemma you put us in from this change. Each person would be content and unaffected by the other. They could live a full and happy life, free from unyielding drive to know, content with what they make and believe. The captain finished his opening remarks. The eye pulsed and vibrated in a hypnotic combination that he was having trouble resisting. He, of course, had been here before. He had faced this thing in the past. His past for sure, but perhaps not this one's past, he thought. Perhaps the travelers had returned. He was chosen for this mission because of his success before, his ability to resist and confront the vast empty, the unbearable bleakness, devoid of color, sound, and smell, here at World's End. It had been in the last age of man that Nipplefudge had found himself here, facing this eye, arguing for their right to choose, their right to exist, and he had won that day, but not without concessions. And in his mind, he had little doubt that the eye had not changed its intentions, but rather had foreseen his attempt and plea as part of a plan. The point was that Nipplefudge had since come to understand that the third age might have been the eye's intention all along, were no more important to the change as a fly's movement over the seas are to the tides. Insignificant. The other possibility was that his steadfast belief in belief had overcome the eye and brought about the age he wanted. Here, now, in the maelstrom of the eye's unyielding glare, it did not seem as if he would ever know for sure. The captain forced his words into hard thoughts and fired them at the center of the eye like a cannonball. Even as the eye flooded his head with images to come, an age of knowledge, this place where hope would find no safe harbor, where only the hard facts of would be so, and then, just who would be the author of this new and solid world, he wondered. What then could anyone look forward to? Would there be no room for invention or creation of our own? Or would there be only the finite plane of existence? The answer from the eye was as vague and undesirable as he thought this age would be. He could make no more argument this way. "This is untenable," he offered the eye. "I need to see you, face to face. I suggest we parley in the flesh, and to be fair, you must be as I am, feel like me, think like me, and be able to understand how it would feel to live like we have, and then live the way you now will force us to. Only then can you be sure that your choice is a sound one, if facts and knowledge be the rule of the day. You need to know these facts and have this knowledge, do you not?" Nipplefudge fell to one knee, spent but not willing to simply lay down. Suddenly, the sound and the force and the heat and all the manifestations of the eye had vanished. The captain stood still. He felt light again, as if he was on his ship, facing a cool breeze. The void seemed to have more air than before, and even a slight smell of the sea. "Is this what you ask of me?" A voice spoke from behind him. He turned to see a man, slight in frame, having only the faintest of features, like a painting that had been left out in the rain. "It be close," the captain said as he tried to come to terms with the fact that his play had worked, and then another thought entered his mind. The eye quickly spoke to it. "No, Captain, you will not be able to kill me." The captain let out an uncomfortable laugh. "'Twas just a fleeting thought. Besides, it wouldn't be in the spirit of our parley," he quickly offered, hoping he had not taken a misstep. "I am here now, as one of you. What then will this do? What knowledge is there that I could not have foreseen already?" the eye asked. And in truth the captain had not thought one bit past the request, but he was thinking he was half the way there. "Can you feel now the full effect of being a man? The beating in your chest, the blood flowing in your veins, the air filling your lungs then?" he asked the eye. "No," it said flatly. "What good would that do?" The captain gave the eye a slight smile. "Sure you would not be trying to cheat here then, would ye? Sure you cannot feel like a man without the trappings and pomp of the state of man?" The eye seemed to be thinking, and then his body seemed to fill out, becoming thicker and then staggering a bit to stand up. It seemed to be having trouble with the simple act of breathing in and out. "Not as easy as it looks," the captain commented. "It is a primitive state I am unfamiliar with," it offered in a monotone. "So now then, what manner of revelation am I expected to have here?" the eye asked with a hint of impatience. The captain chose his words carefully now. "How you be feeling, happy or sad, mad or joyful?" "I have no needs for feeling," it said. The captain scoffed. "This simply will not work without feelings." "Fine," the eye agreed. "If it is needed, then I will have them." And in a minute, the captain could see the eye's face now held a look of hostility. "What do you feel now?" he asked the eye. I feel hot, like I might strike you." "That be anger you have there. Does that feel a welcome state to always be in?" the captain asked. "No, I think not. It is not appealing." "Well, that is only one of 100 of such feelings that we shall have all the time if we are made to live in a world where we are not in control of our surroundings, where we know nothing more than a few simple things and understand nothing, where we will not have the right to make the world what we want, that we have to give up power of belief and settle for whatever you grant us. Would you like to feel like that for all times?" The captain stopped for a moment, seeing the eye was now unable to stand still. He had started to walk around, waving his hands and grinding its teeth. "I do not care what you think you should have," he screamed at the captain. "I am not inclined to give you any more than I want to. What you have has made you more like me, and I do not like it one bit. And now that I am feeling as you do, I can see that what you really want is to be me, or destroy me, or become me." This was rage now. Feelings new and intense were pulsing through it, unchecked and uncontrolled, because it had had no lifetime of experience with them. The eye was like an all-powerful child drunk on emotions. This was something the captain had not anticipated. He had hoped that once the eye had feelings, he would empathize with humans, but He did not expect for it to become mad or spiteful. He would have to try and calm it without seeming to be patronizing. "Hold steady there," the captain said. "You're not a man. You just feel like one. But you're more powerful, and ye can control the simple feelings of a lowly man for sure." "I shall," it replied, seeming to take his words as praise rather than insults. In a moment the eye had the look of a calm man, but its eyes were still as fire on the water. "There," it said, "I have mastered these small things of man." "Are you sure, then? Can we continue?" "Yes," it said, "but there is nothing I need more now. I see your play for what it is. You wish to make me feel like you in the hopes of disliking it. But you have been made to suffer, to toil. It is your role. I care not about your feelings. That, sir, is your failure," it ended, thinking the captain would yield. But the captain was not done. "Sure, it might be so. You and I will never be the same. For example, you are one for great plans, and see them to their end, while the likes of men are simple folk and misguided." The eye seemed satisfied with that. "I can find no argument in your logic," it offered. The captain smiled slightly. "And, being as such, surely we would be trusting you that you've got a plan for all of us then?" "Why, yes," it replied in a pompous tone. "Then what that be?" the captain asked flatly. The eye said nothing for a minute, and then began to speak. "My plan is known. You are you, and I am me." "Sure there be nothing more to it than that. You as you, unending. Me as me, unending. Not much of a plan for an all-powerful thing like you." "Take care in your tone," the eye said. "In what regard? If it is only to be me as me all these days, that I have nothing else to look towards or forward to, then what is your threats to me? If every day from now until the end is to be the same, what good does it do a man to stay that course? Silly your plan be," he risked saying, and the eye grew larger and began to glow with heat and rage. "I can end it now for you, if that be your choice," the eye yelled at the captain. "If that be the end of things, then why not? Surely it's your plan to end us all after we do nothing and learn and grow not. I am now not even sure you are the eye. What power would create a thing to do nothing and toil without end? Sick that be, like a cat playing with its food. You're not the eye, you're a small thing, with no larger thoughts than that of an animal. Bring the real eye out here at once, so I may parley with him. I demand to speak to a higher intelligence." The captain faked rage and anger. The eye grew larger still, leaning over the captain, bending its weight onto him. "I am the eye," it screamed into the captain's ear. He was collapsing under the weight and the heat of the eye. "How dare you question me? That I am not who I say I am. No one tells me my limitations. No one dictates terms to me. No one questions my plans. There is no plan. If there is limitations, only endlessness of the same. To what end is that plan? Are you so weak and scared of us that you would keep us at the same always so you not be challenged? You test my patience," it screamed at the captain. "And you, sir, insult my intelligence. A real powerful thing would not be scared of its creations. You be scared of us. Ye know it." "I fear no one." "Then let us be free to believe what we will and become what we will, if you're not afraid of what we will become." The eye was a pillar of fire now, reaching upwards to the sky, its heat and force pushing the captain backwards and onto the bleak ground. He covered his eyes with his hands as the heat felt as if it would burn him. Then all at once it was quiet, the air cool, and there was no fire. In front of the captain the eye floated again, but not the same. Its voice was clear. "You have made your point, Captain. The act of being man is harder than I remembered. And for those who can control the feelings of a man, they surely have the ability to grow and to become more than which they start at. But no one shall ever become greater than me." The captain was spent, his whole body weak and unable to stand. He sat up, leaning forward towards the eye. He forced a smile and words to come out. "We have a deal then?" Yes, believe what you will, create what you will, but this is the rule. You will forget me, that the I exists at all. The captain saw the truth in that. There will never be any of us that try to be you, he said to the eye. Your people were right to send you, the eye offered, as it slowly faded away. We have a deal then, the captain asked again before the eye vanished. And from the empty void, a distant voice simply said, yes. Chapter 7. By the Light of Hubris. It was the endless age of man, known as the Age of Belief, where fantastic airships, huge fireflies, and babies filled the sky as far as one cared to gaze. Babies, as you know, still do not believe in gravity, and therefore it holds no power over them. The captain stood at the bow of the Naughtypants, his deep blue eyes searching the sky for a light, not a speck of light from the dark world above. Hubris, the brightest star in the captain's sky, had gone dim, and now he might well swear that the world may have disappeared below, for no light rose up from the water or land. The Naughtypants might be in space, he thought, and chuckled to himself. He did not believe in space, so that was not possible. No, the blackness was just that, blackness. No heavens, no other worlds, just blackness, and of course, wenches, an endless sea of naked, willing wenches. Yes, that was what the captain believed, and sure as hell, that was what was up there. He was certain that when he was through with this world, he would rise up there into the blackness and swim in that wench-filled sea forever. Yet this was an oddly black and lacking wench's night. Then at once the captain smiled. In his confusion of the day, the captain had forgotten to turn on this star. "O Hubris, illuminate my way," he commanded, to the emptiness, and the star shone so bright it was as if night was day, and his crew came to life. Nipplefudge felt the wind come up, slow at first, but then picking up speed. It rushed over his weathered face and beard, stinging his eyes, pushing his hat back on his head. Nipplefudge smiled, as now the sky was bright and filled with babies, floating on the gentle breeze, just as it should be, as it would always be, as long as he believed it to be so. The Totally True Adventures of Captain Nipplefudge and the fantastic airship Naughtypants. Written by Richard Hendry, copyright 2020. Narrated by Richard Hendry.